Well, hello, hello, hello. Another episode of Corona Spotlight 2020 is on its way. Hello, I'm your host, Gayle Nicholson. I am so excited to be back here in the city again and talking about some really cool stuff this week. I had the pleasure of taking a 3-day weekend and going to commune with squirrels and trees, which are not part of my everyday life here in Phoenix, and really enjoying, strangely enough, being rained on for a day and a half. It was a good day. It was a good weekend. And I'm really, really happy to be back. Now, before I introduce you to my guest today, I want to let you know that this um, Corona Spotlight 2020 has been an absolute privilege to me. I have gotten to know myself as somebody who has created a space that has been very helpful to a lot of people, and I hope to continue doing that. But I will be letting you all know later on this week that we're changing things up for the summertime and going to quote unquote summer hours. So watch for those announcements later on. Now, back to the task at hand. Miss Lia Dunlap is an intuitive business architect, and she classifies herself as the Oracle on Purpose, which I absolutely love because I believe in a past life I was an Oracle at Delphi. They used to get me stoned. I used to spout off interesting stuff, and they'd go and, roll their lives based on what I said. I'm loving it. So, Miss Lia, thank you so much for being with us today, especially with everything that's going on right now. And how are you doing?
Thank you. Thank you, Gail. I'm so glad to be here. And, there are good days and there are bad days. I mean, it's been a really wild ride right now, I think, for a lot of people. And I feel very, honestly, I feel very encouraged to see this shift that's happening in the world. So I feel like one of the words I want to use is actually excited to see change happening in such a bold and beautiful way in the world. And I think that the idea that you're having this spotlight helps people see that the possibilities of shift and change are here all the time, no matter what's happening in the world.
Phenomenal. Phenomenal. Thank you so much. Um, when we originally started talking about having you on the show, it was all very simple. It was, coronavirus, being resilient, getting through all of this type of thing, gearing your business towards, making it through all of this. And that has not gone away. But now there seems to be this second level on top of it, requiring our resiliency at a even more massive level. Let's talk a little bit about that today, if you don't mind. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing this subject up. I think it's super important that people understand that, yeah, it's another layer of not only resiliency, but I think leadership in business is to recognize kind of read the room, see what's happening in the world, and recognize how your purpose and your mission for your work can be a part of affecting positive change and making an impact. And right now there's so much opportunity to really stand for what you believe in and share on a global level with a big shift that's happening in regards to you know um, systemic racism and what people are dealing with as far as the protests and things like that, that they're seeing activism, they're seeing people motivated to be active. And part of that is it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. It's a
Mm-hmm.
big shift. It's been happening for hundreds of years. It's not going to change necessarily overnight, but the tipping point, I think, is the big thing to recognize. That the tipping point right now is such that we're going through the beginning of going through this. It is not over. It's not going to happen overnight, but to lean in to being part of going through it for a better outcome for all, is really, that's a sign of leadership, and that's a sign of understanding how can you become resilient in how you show up each day. Because I feel like, even as we talked about originally about even the COVID experience and people dealing with the coronavirus, that there was a lot of shift that had to happen quickly. Again, we're kind of seeing that up leveling. And so to be resilient in that, to me, has always meant to be returning to center, right? To become back to yourself, know what you stand for, know who you are, know what talents and gifts you bring to the table, and leaning into those to keep you steady, because the steadiness allows you to make smart choices, to be impactful in a positive way, and to really show up as a true leader in whatever your area of expertise is. It doesn't mean that you have to suddenly, as we were just talking about, become an activist who's on the front lines. It is about how do you show up with the work you are already doing in a way that and acknowledges, and also, I want to say, takes advantage of the opportunity to be more vocal. So it can look a lot different for a lot of people depending on what their call is, but it is a chance to take advantage of moving into something with an understanding that who you are and what you have to offer really can be enough if you've pointed it in the right direction, if you've
Awesome.
pointed it in positivity.
Awesome. There's a couple of things about what you said that I want to pull apart. The first one being, this is the beginning of a marathon. This is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And we really are at the beginning of the journey, so to speak. And as you said that, I got the image of, one of those four-legged races where they pass the baton, right? And another old memory came to mind about when you're singing in a chorale or a choir, right? And you've got those very, very long notes that no human being can possibly sustain. Come on, right? They teach you how to do cyclical breathing. And it's the same thing here. This concept of a marathon, of passing the baton. When you're winded, I'll run for a while. When I'm winded, you run for a while. But the race continues and the transformation happens. And I think all of us need to kind of look into what we're doing and how we're being an activist. Not just so that we're not tone deaf about, I can fix it this way. No, you really can't, hon. Sit down, open your ears, because this is a community effort. This is a cumulative effort that we have been working on for over 50 years now, well over 50 years now
Well
in
over
this
50.
country,
Yes.
right? So, there's that sense of, we all have to do a little bit, but don't each of us individually burn out, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. We don't want you to burn out, right? Like, nobody wants you to burn out. That's not helpful in the long run, because it is something that we need to understand. The dismantling of all of this it's layers, right? So we're going to have to take layers. And I love your analogy of passing the baton, because it is important not only to take the baton from someone else, but to recognize when it's time for you to pass it. Like, before you become exhausted, before you become depleted and give up.
Yeah.
Know that people are now joining together. Like, we are in this together in a whole new level of unity than we've ever been in the past. So that's a good thing. And we can take advantage of that if we remember to look around for others who are also running that same race with you and pass the baton. Yeah, absolutely. I love that analogy.
Awesome. Good. Thank you. The other part of it that I really wanted to pull out of it as well is that I've noticed a shift in not how do I want to put this? It's not tone deafness, although it kind of is, right? Or it has been in the past. And there's been this shift to, forgive me, this is going to sound awful. This is going to sound this is not PC. My disclaimer, my warning right now, this is not PC, all right? But I've noticed a huge and welcome shift in the white community from, you need to act a certain way before I'll help you, to, you go for it, girlfriend. Let me know what you need. I'm right here, right? You just tell me and I've got your back. But whatever you need to do, you go do it, because this is bullshit and we've had enough. Have you noticed that as well?
I have, and I think that there's this great piece of that, as you just said, is, it's called tone policing, is the term that they've given it. But it's like, if you're angry, I had to explain this to my 8-year-old. So maybe this will help anybody who's listening to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he was confused about what was happening and why people were breaking things. And, he's, uh, you know, he's partially Black as well. So we have to have these conversations. And when I was having this conversation with him, what I explained to him is, have you ever been so frustrated? And I know he has, because I'm his mother, that you want to break a toy because you're just mad. And he looked at me and he's like, oh, I'm like that energy has to be expelled. I said, and so we understand and recognize that when we look outside of ourselves sometimes, that or vice versa, when we turn it back into ourselves sometimes, that yeah, if we ever wanted to throw something or get angry, when we've just been so frustrated we don't know what to do, or we've tried and tried and tried and we can't figure something out, we can't fix it, and we feel like we're at this lever. I said, and that's that pressure relief. Mm-hmm. So to say that you can't do it that way to continue to move forward, that dampens that release. And I think that what you're saying is, what I've been seeing, thankfully, is even those individuals who have, I work with a lot of leaders and a lot of transformational leaders, and even they are, they're challenged with this, because the theory before was, we can do this peacefully. And yes, in some ways we can, but the anger and the frustration, mm-hmm. and the energy is still real. It's still real. It's still valid. So it's like, yes, we can still have both. It can be an and the and is, if you have to scream about this, like I tell my 8-year-old, then go scream about it. Go into your room and just let it out, because that's a valid physical emotion and a reaction. Mm-hmm. And when you're ready, let's figure this out together.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. It's not saying you can't, because frankly, how do you get to choose what I do or don't do with my anger? Mm-hmm. And letting the person know, as you said, like, hey, when you're ready, I'm here. And then it takes it one more step, which I think is really the next level shift that's happening. Mm-hmm. Is it's like, look, we've been telling you for 400 years what we need. So I get that you want to help me. And honestly, I speak for myself. When my friends and people who are white come to me and like, I want to help, what do I do? I have a couple of layers of that. One is like, if they're sincerely looking for a specific answer, please come. I like to say, come, like just did a whole live video on it the other day. Come sit by me. Let's talk. Yeah, please. And as you said, you may say something wrong or feel awkward about it. I'm going to hold you in a space because I know I love you and I want you to get this, because it's important for both of us. And Google, like, you can go there first. And then if you still have questions, and anyone can do that. And I actually spoke to a person online the other day who's like, I want to do this. I wish there was a way. And I said, there is a way. It's called Google. I looked it up. Here's the link. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's like, you can ask these questions online and do your own research. And if you still feel like you're struggling, yeah, but there is that point where it's like, you kind of have to show effort too, that you tried to figure it out.
Yeah. And I was going to say, it's, do you find, and I found this looking from the outside, that Black people with darker skin, have historically carried a lot of the emotional hard work of making white people understand something, and I don't mean that in a bad way, to white people or anything like that. It's just historically, it's like, we expect you to do the work for us, period. Whatever the realm is. Oh my gosh, where'd you...
No, I'm good.
Okay. I'm like, I completely took her voice away. Oh my God.
Yeah, that was funny. It's this idea, like, this is the part of it that's systemic, right? It's like that it's expected to ask us to do the labor. And it's like, okay, but that's the whole point. Like, if you kind of look at that, like, no, yeah. We have done the labor. And the reality of that for me has been this sense, and I was speaking with another person of color the other day on her show, and I'm saying, this is the mental load that we as people of color, that I as a person of color have to take on. Because every day I go into an environment where people choose to have an opinion about me And now today I should be having my hair down, because if my hair's down, it's really curly, so then people automatically take these assessments, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to walk into a room weighing all of those assessments. Like when I sit next to someone, what are they thinking? Should I sit this way or do this or say this? Or, so I'm already under a load
Mm-hmm.
mentally just to communicate with others.
Right.
Whereas my white counterpart would just walk in and be whoever they are. I mean, they have their own, struggles internally with confidence, et cetera, but it has nothing to do with how they look.
Right. Right.
And so that idea, like the mental load is constant.
Yeah.
So that we've kind of worked our muscles about that a bit, like it's like that's how we live our lives. So yes, we're used to it. Doesn't mean that it's right.
It doesn't mean that it's healthy.
Yeah, and it's not healthy. And so when you come to your friends, and even in all goodwill, as you said, to come and ask, you just recognize that you're asking them to add to their mental load to help you not have to.
Wow. Yeah.
To help you avoid the uncomfortableness that we have to carry every day. And I feel like if you say that to someone, they go like, oh, imagine someone's holding, 2 arms full of groceries, and you're trying to open the door and you have nothing in your hand but your purse. And you go, oh, here, can you hold my purse while I open the door? Well, yeah, I can.
Really great analogy.
Yeah. I'm really strong and I've been doing this for a while, but maybe instead you could say, hey, can I take half of those groceries off of your hands? And I can still use my free hand to open the door.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So I think that's the level of like asking for that. If you take it out of the context of what's normalized and just experienced throughout our lives, now is the time where we dismantle these things at that level. Like it's so subtle, but it's really true. And so it's like, if we can dismantle things there, or at least start to, and have conversations that get people to recognize, oh my gosh, I do that. Yeah. Right. And it's like, no, now the next step is not to sit and apologize profusely to me. Take the groceries. Right. Because that's the other thing. It's like, oh my gosh. I'm like, okay, but just stop and take the groceries, and then we can both go through the door together.
Yes. Yeah. Beautiful analogy. Beautiful. So here's I don't want to phrase this like it's some sort of loaded question, but here's my conspiracy theory way of looking at things. Okay. I was talking to somebody over the weekend, and they're like, yeah, but there's just the ones that are going in and busting up stuff, and it's like, and I said, wait a minute. Now, this may be a doctored video that I saw, but I saw a video in Phoenix of people kicking the windows at the Comerica Theater trying to break them, and everyone whose skin tone I could see was white. And then the video scanned over to the right, and there was a thing of bricks right there. Okay? Who brings a load of bricks to a protest? That's a setup to make the black community look like they're so enraged and so angry in my eyes. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't enough anger to generate that kind of violence. I think, honestly, my experience with the black community over the years, and I did go to school in Detroit public schools, is that they know better than to be doing this violent stuff, right? The police aren't nice to them. That's why we're here about this whole thing, right? So I'm not thinking that it's so much the black community that is actually the ones doing a whole lot of the violence. I honestly do believe, I have no idea who's behind it, if it's a one person or an organization, but that there are people, for whatever purpose that they're getting out of it, are setting these things up for theater, drama.
Right. Well, I mean, you have to look at it, even if that, and here's the thing I always say, like, this is one thing I say all the time, like, ask yourself, for what purpose? You're right. Like, what is the purpose of them doing this? Now, yes, there are thousands and thousands of people protesting. Are there going to be a few people who are people of color who are angry enough to break something?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like, of
Human
course.
nature, yeah.
And yet, you're right. There are definitely, images out there that are showing people who are not people of color breaking things and instigating things. And that is also probably a piece of this puzzle. The thing to do, though, and this is what I say, so if you want to have this conversation, then my question back to you is, for what purpose?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're going to talk about those people, then we are taking our energy and our valuable voices and visibility and shifting the focus from the real problem. So whether or not that's like,
So the purpose is
yeah,
as simple as distraction.
right, exactly. So it's like, if
Wow.
that's the case, then let's not give them what they're asking us to do.
Right.
Let's not fuel that distraction and instead stay on task, because we have, as we said already, a lot of work to do.
Yes.
And we have a long road to go. And to stop and sit down and dissect who or why or how that might be happening, it's like, I'd rather spend my energy and time on the 90+% of people out there purposefully, actively protesting real challenges in a real, clear, and focused way, and say, yes, it is time. And thankfully, I think that we are seeing people, that purpose is being rewarded with action.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we need more of. And so when we find ourselves being distracted, and I including myself in that, I ask myself, like, what's the purpose? What purpose can I hold in this moment? Do I want to focus my purpose on distraction? Do I want to focus my purpose on change? And it's like, yeah, I want to be part of the change. I want my grandchildren to say, my Nana was there
Right.
during the civil rights movement of 2020, and she was a part of the change.
That's phenomenal. Yeah. Awesome. So you mentioned to me at the beginning of our talk today that you've kind of become an accidental activist. Tell me what that looks like.
Yes, well, I think that, as my real job, what I do for work, my real work, which I call my real work, is as an intuitive business architect, I help people figure out what their purpose is, how to align that with their business genius, and live a life of significance. So, in one sense, it feels like I'm off topic. However, to live a life of significance, we all have to feel honored and acknowledged, and this systemic racism has to end. So, additionally, as a person of color who is in the minority of people of color who is actually succeeding and successful and wealthy versus some other standards, like, even considering in, like, my own arena of as a coach, like, there are not a lot of people in that industry making six figures. So to be a Black woman,
Mm-hmm.
making that puts me in a place where my own business is a sign of activism. It's a sign of saying, this is possible, and I'm standing for that.
Nice.
And what happened was, in standing for that, and also because, of course, as the oracle, receiving guidance from a non-sentient being about this entire year, not just this time we're in now, but receiving guidance at the beginning of January about the tumultuousness and the change that was coming, I knew instinctively that there would be messages coming through that I needed to share.
Nice.
And so, as weary as the mental, like, load, as we talked about, was, there were days when I woke up and I got the message. You're going to go talk. You're going to get out there. You're going to open Facebook and you're going to talk about being a woman of color, your experiences, and people need to hear them. That's not was like that wasn't on my marketing plan, just so we're all clear, right? So it was not on my marketing plan at all. And yet, and it's still the sense of, like, suddenly I kind of, the other day, was like, wow, people are asking me questions and I'm happy to answer them, like I said before, when they're genuine, and especially when they come with my close friends who really come in an honoring and respectful way of the load, looking at me and saying, can you handle this question? Are you available? Are you resourced to help me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, most often than not. But also okay when I say no. Like, no, I got to tap out today. As you said, I'm going to go talk to some squirrels and sit in the backyard and, watch the
Right.
blue sky for a minute. So there's all of those layers. But the reality of it is that sense of, as I just said, being a part of making the change called me to be more actively vocal about my own personal experience as a person of color, but also to reach out and tap people that I know who are diversity, equity, and inclusion people that really do know, the nuances and the breakdowns of how this all was affected, and also sharing real Black history that people have not been privy to, Black or white, frankly, as much as possible. I was on a call the other night with a group of leaders, mixed leaders, Black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the girls that was there is a young woman, and she had never heard about Black Wall Street or Tulsa, Oklahoma. And,
I just
and
got
her
chills.
eyes,
I love that story.
yeah, and her
I
eyes
hate the
got
story,
really
but I love the
big.
story about Black
Yeah,
Wall
and
Street.
it's like, to tell this story and recognize that here as a 20-something-year-old woman who is a person of color, not knowing that story, to me, these are the pieces that I'm helping to shine a light on, because I think that that's part of living a life of significance, is to make sure that you highlight the beautiful things in this world and the changes that happened and the people that show up to speak and make that change possible. And it may take some digging. And so if I can help with a little bit of that digging because it's knowledge I have, then to me, that's that activism. That's how it's showing up
Yes.
for me. Yeah.
Nice. All right. So then what is next for you? I mean, I don't expect you to change your entire brand system and become, the Oracle activist, right? But it's kind of a many are called and few will answer, and you've answered. So,
Right.
what's the next step on the path?
Right. Well, that's a really great question, because even leading up to this, one of the callings that I was getting inside of myself was to really spend my focus, like marketing and working on building part of my business to work with real leaders and organizations and leaders of organizations to ensure that their people and the leaders that were leading them were truly aligned with their purpose. Because what I do believe, absolutely, without a doubt, and always have, is that if an individual is truly living their unique life purpose, then they are showing up exactly as the universe intended when it created them. And by doing that, they are a part of the shift of the world. They are one of the levers, I like to say. So truly what I'm doing next is looking for what I call the 5 levers, 5 global leaders who are ready to be a part of shifting the trajectory of our humanity, and being there to help them understand how being in alignment with who they are will make that possible. And to do that, taking the tools and the resources I've had for the last 25 years and kind of focusing that arrow, sharpening it, if you will, to look for those people who are consciously aware and ready, but are maybe looking for validation, acknowledgement, and, because it's available through working with me, that kind of galactic view of how their real work could make an impact, and a positive one, on the world.
That's inspiring. Oh my gosh. So, for my audience, if any of you feel called by what Lia just spoke and are over there going, wait, that's me. I'm one of those. I'm one of those. Give us the information on how they can reach out to you and connect.
Yes, thank you. So the first way to find me is simply on my website, oracleonpurpose.com. I am on all of the social media places that you could probably see me on, but primarily Facebook. And you can find me under Coach Lia Dunlap, the Oracle on Purpose. And on all other social medias, it's just Coach Lia Dunlap. You'll find me there. And please feel free to reach out, because I absolutely know that each one of us is here on purpose.
Awesome. Awesome stuff. All right, my dear. Do you have any final thoughts for our audience before we send them off to change the world this week?
Yes, remember that you can't change the world from an empty cup. So please, as we mentioned already, This is definitely a marathon and not a sprint. Listen to your own inner guidance to know when you have been overwhelmed, either energetically or emotionally, by what you're seeing. Monitor your own energy source and do things that are aligned with who you are so that you can get out tomorrow and the next day and the next day and keep this moving forward and be a part of that change, because you have it within you. You just need to know how to meter it and take care of yourself while you're doing it, because we need you. We need everyone to be walking through this together.
Awesome. Phenomenal. And my final words for you, Lia, are thank you for being who you are in this world. We need you right now. And thank you for standing up and being who you were created to be, because it's going to make such a huge difference for all of us.
Thank you very much, Gayle.
All right, Facebook, have a wonderful day and a wonderful week ahead. We'll be back and talking to you again real soon. Bye-bye. When you open energy work, makes that recovery progress so much faster. That recovery is possible. You do not have to live as a victim until your last days. You have unbelievable strength, and I know that because you're still here. Do you want to create something completely unrecognizable with your life? I can show you how.